40. Now he says this during a groundbreaking ceremony to improve the infrastructure at Namamve Industrial Park.
The Industrial Business Park, located 11 kilometers on the busy Kampala-Jinja Highway, was developed by the Uganda Investment Authority in the early 2000s as a central location for investors to locate factories, warehouses, and a distribution center. Currently, the 2,200-acre business park is home to 306 companies, 50 fully operational, 106 under construction, and the rest doing preliminary studies. However, according to investors, the park faces challenges of infrastructure.
Non-existent street lights, improper drainage system, poor sewage disposal, and the lack of tarmac access roads to all premises.
A groundbreaking ceremony to upgrade the infrastructure within the park officiated by the UK Minister for Africa, Andrew Stevenson, alongside Honourable Evelyn Anite, the Minister for Investment and Privatisation, and that of Works, General Katumba Wamala, will see roads, waste treatment facilities, sewage, drainage networks within the park constructed and water facilities.
We can and must work together to promote our mutual prosperity and in doing so support Uganda's ambition to become a middle-income country by 2040.
It is our biggest project, industrial park in the country. We've been tasked with the assignment of establishing 25 industrial parks. Now for us, our flagship is Namamve Industrial Park. So Lagan, the 48 months, we will be counting, and the clock starts ticking now.
The Minister for Works and Transport, General Katumba Wamala, urged the UK contractors, Lagan Group Limited, to promote local content.
Because we have been pushing for that in all our projects, that we must have a local content. So we have a local content, and as a Minister of Works, I'm happy on that. As a ministry responsible for the infrastructure, we'll ensure that we have an eye over the quality of work which is being done.
The UK Minister for Africa's visit comes a week before the UK Africa Investment Summit in London that will see UK and African leaders, including President Museveni, create new lasting partnerships that will deliver more investment, jobs and growth. Shaidat Nasaku, reporting for UBC.
Well, that's quite interesting if you think about it, because so many times we've seen also the Uganda Investment Authority, they come out and set certain rules and set certain standards, but for them to also look at the fact that, well, as much as we're having so many investment coming through, especially with a park like Namamve Industrial Park there, and if any of you has passed through that direction or gone down that direction, it's just a couple of kilometers that are actually good road. The rest of it is something, of course, that has been hinted on or talked about there, but in regards to infrastructure, which is quite true. Also, waste disposal, as you could see in the images there earlier on. And of course, these are things that so many times maybe people would assume are obvious regarding the fact that we have so many investors or industries in there now that are being set up. But of course, I like that the different players have come together, and of course the United Kingdom, to try and make sure that these issues are dealt with, because at the end of the day, if things like infrastructure are not quite set up or up to the standard, then definitely the work is going to be affected. But also the locals and the people within these areas, and how they get to benefit and how they get to participate as well, which would mean also improving their lives. Now, moving on, the Ministry of Works and Transport has earmarked 775 million shillings for the reconstruction of roads in Kisoro district. Now, Rubuguri Town Council, in this particular case, we're also looking at Kanaba, we are looking at Nyundo, and a number of other sub-counties there are some of the beneficiaries.
Ministry of Works and Transport, Western Uganda Regional Engineer Silva Byarugaba has confirmed the repair of some of the feeder roads in Kisoro district. A number of roads to be repaired include Mbwanjera Kagezi and Burabuturo stretch connecting Nyakabande to Kanava, Nyundo and Bukimbiri sub-county. Kisoro woman member of Parliament Rose Kabageni condemned Ministry of Works for improving the road infrastructure in the district, which will ease accessibility to health centers, schools and other public places. The construction of works were launched at Mbwanjera Trading Center in Kisoro district. Shaidat Nasaku, reporting for UBC.
Of course, that is a very good move, and of course a good thing for the people of Kisoro in terms of access. And remember, when we talk about access, when we talk about roads, there's a number of things that so many people might seem to ignore sometimes. But if you have access, if you have the good roads, then you can access the health facilities, the schools, and so many other things around. So that is a very good move. Now, moving on, the civil society organizations under the umbrella body that is the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group have advised the government to increase the budget for 2020-2021, and the group, based on the budget framework paper for 2020 and 2021, which projects that the budget will reduce from 40.48 trillion to 39.6 trillion shillings.
The 2020-2021 budget is projected to drop from 40.48 trillion in the financial year 2019-2020 to 39.6 trillion Uganda shillings. The Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group has therefore advised government to ensure that the budget for 2020-2021 is not reduced, because this is the financial year when the National Development Plan 3 will start being implemented.
In terms of disbursement, it doesn't reach schools on time. Different schools receive different disbursements of capitation grants at different intervals, which affects the implementation of activities in schools, but also children cannot have access to the materials that they need within the school.
The National Development Plan guides the country's planning to prioritize its development agenda and is reviewed after every 5 years. The Executive Director of SCBAG, Julius Mukunda, says inappropriate budget planning is what calls for supplementary budgets, yet this affects other sectors of the economy.
Frequent supplementary budgets requests continue to undermine the process. It's affecting the credibility of the process. In financial 2018-19, 2.2 billion for Soroti University for student enrollment, 60.2 billion for e-passport, and 1.2 billion for Electoral Service Commission to recruit 3,000 education service staff. Now, you see, supplementary budget, what we're talking about is that when you have poor planning, then you continue to supplementary budgeting. And supplementary budgeting is very well stipulated in the law. It must be unavoidable, it must be unforeseeable, it must be unabsorbable. But we continue to spend on the things that actually are absorbable, are avoidable, and can be foreseen.
He also advised government to properly analyze the development priorities in the National Development Plan 3 before deciding on the budget for 2020-2021.
This budget is not based on any plan. We don't know where government is getting the plan. We don't know where government is going to implement this budget, because we don't have a plan. Because according to the Public Finance Management Act, Section 9, Subsection 3, it requires the minister to prepare the budget from a paper which is consistent with the National Development Plan. The National Development Plan 2, NDP 2, is ending in June this year. The 2021 National Budget Framework paper should be based on NDP 3, which we know it's in a zero draft form. So we don't have a plan.
According to the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group, government needs to allocate funds to climate change mitigation strategies and adaptation, since agriculture is the backbone of Uganda's economy.
The big problem of climate change. And as we talk about agriculture, as we talk about livelihoods of the people, as we talk about poverty, there is no way how we can improve agriculture, there is no way how we can solve poverty if we don't mitigate the impacts of climate change. When it rains too much, we get floods, farmers lose out. Their crops are submerged. When it shines, again the drought will cause a lot of problems.
The Executive Director, Food Rights Alliance, Agnes Chirabo, also emphasized on the need for government to properly plan for the development of the industrial sector.
We cannot be saying in the next 5 years we are going industrialization as a country, job creation and shared prosperity. Listen to those words. And here you come to kickstart your journey by buying horse.
Bella Masangano and Sebira Anthony for UBC News.
Now it's time for us to take a look at our newspapers there in our digest. And of course, so many times we get to give you these kind of stories so that maybe you can go out there, get yourself a newspaper. If you're not able to, then you can know some of the things that are happening in here. And of course, we cannot exhaust everything. Like I always say, it does not hurt to read. Now, we're looking at the fact that the Agriculture Ministry has asked for 5 billion contingency funds in preparation for possible invasion of desert locusts, which are currently ravaging the northeast Kenya. Now, of course, what we're seeing is that swarms of desert locusts, they started moving into Kenya on December the 28th, affecting their various counties there, and in this particular case they spread also to many other areas, and there are fears that some swarms could indeed spread into the northeast Uganda, southeast South Sudan and southwest Ethiopia, according to a statement, of course, there from the Food and Agriculture Organization. Now, what we're seeing is that there is a technical team of about 2 officers, that have been assigned to travel to Kenya and to study the current locust control operations, and of course get to share experiences there and support the control efforts in Uganda in case of a similar situation or in case of an invasion by the locust. Now, of course, another one, of course, quite linked to that is the fact that farmers are asking government to regulate drug agents. They're saying this is an issue that has been going on for quite a while, but we must also identify here within the business section of the paper, I'm looking at the New Vision here, they're saying, well, there's need for better information for in case we need to have diversified export markets. So the issue here, they say, is the issue of information. Now, of course, there's been lots of disruptions here in the export markets of South Sudan due to the war, and also we're looking at Rwanda due to the closure of the Katuna border they're crossing, and also increase in tariffs on some exports to Kenya have also increased the need for Uganda to diversify her export markets. Now, this advice was given by Jacob, and of course, who's a country economist at the International Growth Center in Uganda, and did point out in a presentation there at the 3rd Growth Conference at the government that the government rather should scale up the local manufacturing ability and help the matching process between farms by providing information rather on suppliers. Now, of course, diversifying of export markets is in this case going to help us, or rather allow us survival of exporting farms, and government should support farms here to achieve this between farms by, of course, providing information on suppliers, he pointed out. And of course, the focus here was on exploiting available overseas export markets, and also scaling up manufacturing ability, and also addressing all hindrances here to growth of the manufacturing industry, with a particular emphasis on agro industry and mineral processing. And of course, these are very, very key areas within the industry. Now, of course, a number of things were pointed out as well, and of course, giving a bigger picture in regards to what could be the challenges. Now, of course, we're looking at the Rwanda border closure there. Now, of course, the challenges that have come with that, and of course a lot of that demand was quickly redirected into DRC and South Sudan as well as Kenya. Now of course with regional exports increasing to nearly $800 million, which comes to about 2.95 trillion in 2019, and this could indeed grow further in 2020 to strengthen the shilling and the economy. So you can get yourself the newspaper and find out a whole lot more on that. There's very, very interesting reports here, of course, that you can take a look at. I'll not exhaust everything. So we're going to take you in for a quick break, and we're going to be back with our very own, because they've been following up on this particular discussion as we look at the Uganda Airlines and its about the first 100 days of doing business. Of course, we all know where that story has come from and where we are now and how far. There was a lot of questions on whether it's going to work and how it's going to work as well, considering it's been quite a while until we had to revive the Uganda Airlines. So don't go away, we'll be back.
Shawe Venantius, Sergeant Ranger Guide, Queen Elizabeth National Park, Station Dishasha. And we are here having a look at a pride of lions. And this is the commonest pride scene, which comprises of 4 adults, 3 females, and 1 sub-adult male, plus 4 cubs. Here, now though the group is missing 1 female, maybe on the ground or up in the tree, somewhere else. And they are up in the trees because, as I said, we call them tree climbing lions. The reason is that they climb up in the trees, which is not common in other lions. And they are nowhere different, the same species of lions we have on the planet Earth. But these ones, they have that tactic and ability of climbing up in the trees, because we feel it's because our soil here is clayish. So after rain, it holds a lot of water, so which forces them to leave that muddy, watery place to make themselves clean and smart, and then they go and rest up in the trees. That's why they commonly up in trees most of the time.
Good morning, Uganda. Today is a great day to make someone's day. A wonderful day to rewrite the future. Today is a beautiful day to light up their world. Or maybe even the perfect day to say, "You're my world." A marvelous day to make a brand new start. The perfect day to make the world smaller. Uganda, today isn't just another day. Today is your day. Airtel Money, with you always. Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
4 strangers, a designer, a chef, a travel agent, and a caterer will compete in the place we all know and love, the kitchen. For the grand prize of 1 million shillings, they will need every skill, every
We
taste,
don't cut Nakati with a chopping board in Uganda.
and every advantage.
My husband taught me this.
But if you can't take the hit,
I'm worried about the food. We're looking there.
wait at the table.
I can be what I want to be. I can be a president if I want to be a president.
Or not. But wherever you go, don't miss the all-new series premiere for Django Today, coming soon.
You know I got you, right?
Scratch your back.
But I've got to tell you something. Crude does not have audience for explanations. You know, we've got to do something.
I want all of you to know that, especially you the youths, muli mu myaka gya buvubuka, gye kino emyaka gyammwe egy'obukozi.
You're here for counseling? Yes, Reverend. Marriage counseling? Yes. Do you love her?
Yes.
Go marry her.
God, this cross is too heavy for me to carry.
Well, that's just, you know, to get you into the mood and the feel of what we're going to discuss this particular morning. And with me in studio is a very own, you know, we always have so many people internally that are following up on stuff, you know, correspondents in different fields. And also, of course, I must say, with me in studio is Samuel Senono. He has been following up ever since we started the discussion of Uganda Airlines. Is it going to happen? How soon is it going to happen? How is it going to work? And things like this. And he's been moving with all the right people. He has gone I think all these particular routes that have been You've gone for them. But I'm glad you've made time for us today, because there's so many things we need to discuss.
It's a pleasure being here.
Indeed. And of course, because now I'm talking with the right person that has been following up on these things, I would want to say you're going to give us a little bit of some sort of analysis on what our aviation is like, well, both regionally and of course at a bigger picture. But this is very interesting. First of all, it was very good news to hear when we are going to revive the Uganda Airlines.
True.
Yes. There was questions, there was doubts, but also there were those who were excited. And I would love to think many people have now sort of adopted to it and said, well, it's here and it's a very good thing. Those who have tried taking these flights through the region have actually appreciated it. I'm sure you're one of those, definitely.
Yes, I've amassed some flight hours on Uganda Airlines.
Yes. Yeah. So you are doing something amazing. I think we're yet to see it, but you are doing something amazing. But of course, we must identify that it's since September that there were commercial flights, so it's making about 4 months.
4 months now of commercial operations.
Of commercial operations.
That's when they were given a certificate of air operations. So they started the commercial operations. They received the aircraft in April, and they had to go through that process of satisfying the regulatory authority that they meet the standards and they are okay to be in the skies. So they were given an AOC in September, thus kick-starting the commercial operations. And the maiden flight was in Nairobi. The excitement was intense, and everybody was on board, because after close to 20 years,
for sure.
That was a long hiatus. 20 years, Uganda Airlines was normal, but then we're back in the skies. So the excitement was intense. I basically looked at from the day Uganda took delivery. We were privileged to be there as UBC in Montreal, Canada, when Uganda took delivery of the first 2 aircraft. That was at the Bombardier headquarters. And following them up, how they went about the business, recruiting the right people, having on board the necessary, because this is what they looked at. They sought for guys who had experience in this sector, and those were the ones who are at the helm of the airline.
That is true.
So our documentary looks at the first days, really, the behind the scenes, things that nobody saw. I can't release out that much, but we're looking at the behind the scenes, things that led to what we see right now.
And of course, the viewers of UBC will be, of course, getting to watch this.
Yes, it will run on, we have a documentary show called In Focus, and basically the subject matter is Uganda Airlines, and we will be looking at their first
100 days. 100 sounds like a small number for...
You see,
but there's a lot, of course, that...
In everything, you must rate the 100 days before you go to 1 year. You rate the 100. We've seen presidents. They rate the first 100 days of a president.
It gives you the picture.
Yeah, it gives you the picture of whether someone is on the right trajectory or someone is totally off.
That is very true. And of course, there's a number of things you're looking at in regards to the first 100 days. Let's go to, in terms of how this came to happen. I know I'm taking you a little bit back, and whether this seems to be a viable decision that we did take as a country. I know you've followed, you've seen what's been going on, and some people, I'll be honest with you, are still a little bit, they don't know how this will play out. I think they're waiting for another year
True,
to see how it goes.
But you see where the world is heading. Every country at least needs a national carrier, one for prestige. But then Uganda, the fact that Entebbe, Nairobi, or even Entebbe, our airport Entebbe, the fact that we have plans of expanding it, making it a regional hub, we badly needed a national carrier.
That is true.
And Uganda Airlines came in at the right time. It came in at a time when passengers from Entebbe or connecting to the rest of Africa were being boxed into a small corner here, at the mercy of the airlines that we had at play. The pricing, all those things, delayed flights. So many Ugandans were suffering. You can all suffer when you don't have a national carrier. A national carrier mostly comes in, to help, most especially the nationals, in connecting them to other countries. So Uganda was missing in that, we were lacking in that. And after all those years, I strongly believe, you know, the people who are at the helm of reviving Uganda Airlines, you know, did some groundwork. They did benchmark to see how best the revived airliner can live up to the expectations of people and not going into the earlier mess, because we've seen, we saw Uganda Airlines, the first Uganda Airlines being grounded, and then we also saw one which wasn't part of government, but then some people came in, Air Uganda. It also failed to meet up to the expectations. So in coming up with Uganda Airlines, it was a well thought up idea that there was no room for error.
That is true. Indeed. So let us look at which routes we are taking now, you know, just to give the people a bigger insight, because yes, we know we started with Nairobi and then we started moving on within the region. Now, so where are we at now? How many places are we going in the region?
Right now, Uganda Airlines is flying 8 routes in the region. Nairobi, Mombasa, Juba, Mogadishu, Kilimanjaro, Arusha, Zanzibar. They're flying 8 routes in the region, even Bujumbura. And these are routes which were informed by demand and routes informed by, you know, passenger traffic. You'll see that right now they started with 2. Right now Uganda Airlines has 3 direct flights, Nairobi, Entebbe to Nairobi daily. So these are routes which are informed by demand and traffic. We also have that of Juba. You know, there is so much business between Uganda and South Sudan, so much business between Uganda and Nairobi. Then you look at Bujumbura, you know, you look at Zanzibar, many tourists want to go there. You know, Mombasa, the same thing, it's a coastal town, the businessmen. So that's what they're looking at. Mogadishu, Somalia, you know, Uganda, the UPDF is among the peace contributing countries to AMISOM. And there is so much business between Entebbe and Mogadishu. Even the Somalis, you know, the Somalis and the South Sudanese, Uganda is like their second home. So there is that connectivity. And
this is very interesting. Now, before we actually went on air, you were telling me how the Entebbe-Nairobi route is the most...
it's one of the most profitable
routes. And this is quite exciting, you know, for the airline. Not one to
you see, there was a ranking, there was a, you know, a study outed by you know, players who are cognizant, who study the aviation industry, and by seats, Entebbe Nairobi is one of those most profitable routes of the African continent, and Uganda Airlines came in at a time to leverage also on that. Because this is a continent, Africa, most especially Africa, it's a continent where many planes, you know, have empty seats. And to have a route which is, you know, which is full on, you know, say for example, if it has 3, 2.5, you know, those flights. So it's something to, it's worth celebrating and it's something to leverage on. But then there's players, I think the players in the sector must look at what, you know, those, you know, what's shunning Africans away from taking up air transport. Once that is addressed, I think, you know, this will be...
Because it's mostly maybe business people, maybe a few experts who will say, let us try using the Uganda Airlines. The Ugandans themselves are not quite keen on using air transport, maybe because we've not had it anyway for 20 years. So I hope that's a motivator. Now, okay, now I see that regionally this seems to be quite a good area for us. We seem to be if you look into the regional performance, probably seeing that now, especially if we've hinted out on the Nairobi, Mogadishu, this seems to be like a very good deal for us.
Yeah, you know, regional connectivity. This is something which was missing. Because if you see 80% of the intercontinental traffic linking Africa, you know, it's taken up by the big players. It's taken up by foreign airliners. It's taken up by airlines. It's taken up by Emirates. It's taken up by British Airways and many other airliners not from Africa. So with the coming of African airliners on board, and that's an issue that we had at a certain conference in Africa about aviation. And these people were talking about competition amongst
Yes, because I was
from
going to say
Africa.
that seems
that's what
quite
they're talking
competitive.
about. That's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
That Uganda Airlines is coming on board to compete with Kenya, to compete with Ethiopia, to compete with Rwanda. But then, Tewolde Gebremariam, who is the CEO of Ethiopian Airlines, he said, guys, look, 80% of the intercontinental traffic is consumed by Emirates, British Airways, Brussels, the big players, Qatar. Where are we as Africans? Because if you look at Emirates and 830 million US dollars from Africa. British Airways and 175 million US dollars. The only African airliner, the only African airliner that came close to that was the Angola, the national carrier in Angola, because they have a direct flight from Luanda to Lisbon. So Africans, we should not look at, he said, and it's an idea being bought, because when Uganda took delivery of the 2 Sierra Leone Energy liners at Entebbe, President Kaguta Museveni seemed to be, reading from the same script with him, saying that for him he would be happy, because he said that he would be happy if at all we have an East African airliner. We once had it when the East African community was still active. So this assumed competition among airliners in Africa is not taking us anywhere.
Anyway, yeah.
African airliners have to look at code sharing, they have to look at partnerships that way, because 80% is so huge.
It is a huge space to work with. Now, very interesting now, generally in terms of, we've seen how different airlines have been performing, especially if we're looking at the national carriers. Just the other, not so far, we're looking at the situation in Kenya as well. Before, when we're talking about reviving Uganda Airlines, so many people came out and started referring to what's happening in Kenya, how it could be difficult, to handle in terms of managing, in terms of, making profit, for example, and this, the struggle that comes with so many of these airliners within the African, if we can push the picture further, within the African region.
Many airliners are suffering on the African continent, but you see, and those that are somehow, prospering, or somehow, or those ones that are allegedly, gaining
making
ground
it, yeah.
and making it, they come from a background of, now let's look at Ethiopia, it's coming from a government of, a background of full government backing. I think for the airliners to stay afloat, government has to strongly come up. Government has to support the national carrier. And we've seen it, good thing with Uganda, right now, I think President Kaguta Museveni directed that Uganda Airlines should be exempted from the ground fees at Entebbe International Airport. They should also be given a full floor on the new Entebbe building, the Entebbe Airport building. They will use that for office space, ticketing, and all housing, their catering services, and many others. So I think airliners in Africa can stay afloat if at all their governments come in full throttle and support them. It has worked with Ethiopia. Ethiopia is one of the leading airliners, it's one of the leading airliners on the African continent. They have a fleet of over 100 aircraft. We've seen it in Egypt. We're seeing it in South Africa. So with Kenya, I think Kenya needed full government support. I posted a tweet about President Museveni exempting Uganda Airlines from paying the ground fees and all those things. And surprisingly, many Kenyan journalists in the aviation industry, it's like they came up with a debate that Kenya should also do the same. I think for a long time, it was neglected by government and left into the private sector. So we've
seen so many private players.
Because even Uganda Airlines, we can't come after we can't ask them where are the profits now. How are you doing? No, we shall give them time. We shall give them time. We shall give them time like 5 years. It's too early. It's too early for us to say that. Okay, Uganda Airlines, you've been in business for
considering,
you're making a year. Now, what are the profits? What is the return on investment?
There's some people out there asking those questions.
Yes, they're asking those questions, but
but of course, considering the fact that we're just starting out, I think now we have only a fleet of 4.
Yes, we have a fleet of 4 Sierra Leone Energy jetliners from Bombardier, but then we're expecting long haul, the long distance, planes. Those will be delivered. One will be delivered in December. It's being worked on by the Airbus. It's a Neo. It's the 800 Neo. It's that one, it will serve the long distance routes. And you know, you see, with the airline business, to make profits and to stay afloat, you must have long distance. You must have long distance flights. Those long distance routes.
That'll bring in more money.
That bring in more money.
Okay, that's very true. So one would ask, is that too soon? Because we're looking at this year, right?
Yes, we're looking at this year. But then, because a report showed that Ugandans, you know, President Yoweri Museveni said, you know, he used the term donating. The report showed that Ugandans donate $450 million every year in foreign travels.
In foreign travels.
Let's look at the routes that we all ply, Ugandans. Entebbe, Dubai. So, you know, they'll have to leverage on such routes. Entebbe, Dubai. It's one of the most profitable routes also. Entebbe, Dubai. I understand the British Foreign Secretary was in Uganda late last year, and some of her deliverables is to secure a direct flight from Entebbe to Gatwick or Heathrow. You understand what is going on in the United Kingdom, Brexit. With Brexit on board, so they are looking for alternative markets, and they want to secure Entebbe, Gatwick or Heathrow. It's one of their deliverables, and they're looking at cargo. We're looking at our exports. So I think this will be something profitable. This is something that that Uganda can leverage on, and you know, to break even. To break even, indeed. And of course, like you mentioned, it's going to take us a while because we've just come back and we're taking back, you know, taking a firm, but I like that we're taking a firm stand on this one. I must be very particular on that, because you can see the kind of energy that all the different players have brought into place. But now let's go to the fact that this has happened. We're looking at 4 months down the road, more expectations within the year. We're looking at longer routes in this particular case. But let us look in terms of generally the aviation industry and how, of course, we've talked about the Brexit, how that could be of a great deal to us and things like that. But generally, if we're looking at the global picture, yes, and how best we can take advantage of some of these things. Yeah, globally, you know, globally aviation is, you know, we got some sad news, you know, last year, the Boeing crisis, Ethiopian Lion Air, the planes were grounded, but then just last week, you know, we saw a plane that crashed in Iran. Unfortunately, it was downed by a missile. You know, they're saying it was a mistake. So when you look at the aviation industry, for you to register a success, there has to be less tragedies. Unfortunately, we've started this one with 170 dead. But I attended the Dubai Air Show, and what we witnessed, we saw innovations, futuristic aviation innovations which are meant to steer clear the industry in an environment that is so cognizant of climate change, because aviation contributes close to 40% of the global emissions. So players are coming up with planes that are fuel efficient, planes that don't emit so much carbon gases into the air. So we're looking at, and we also the Boeing crisis. You know, that has, you know, last week some leaks were also released in the USA. You know, because Boeing was a big player in this industry. You know, the 737 MAX was one of the most sought after aircraft everywhere. So we're looking at an industry which suffered greatly, because when you ground, you know, the CEO of Fly Dubai, Fly Dubai had 30 Boeing 737 MAX on order, but right now they're all grounded. It's affecting them. It's affecting them. So they will have to look for alternatives. In aviation, you can't say that if you want a new aircraft, you can just go and get it in a week. No, that's not possible. These guys, Uganda placed its firm orders like we placed them last year. It's going to take us 2 years to receive one aircraft. So it's an industry that is highly regulated, an industry where they want people, just to connect, to connect people and ease the transportation.
Indeed. And the issue of safety now, of course, considering the situation has indeed affected the
safety. Safety has to take, safety has to be top on the agenda. In everything. Ethiopian Airlines suffered greatly with the Boeing 737 MAX crash. It suffered greatly with it, but they're trying to come up, and this year, there is the Aviation Africa Conference.
Yes,
and
which you're definitely going for.
Yes, I'm going for the Aviation Africa Conference, and basically we shall be talking about such things will take center stage, and the single market air traffic charter in Africa, where they want African airliners to cooperate, in a bid to, to boss these international players.
That is true.
Yeah, who are taking up almost
all the space
in the air traffic.
That is very true. Now, so many things were talked about when we were reviving the Uganda Airlines. So many, of course, even the minister, many people came out and said, well, we are going to try and take advantage of this. Tourism, for example, is one of the key focuses in which we're seeing maybe Uganda Airlines could profit from, as well as tourism profit from the airline. More on that.
Uganda Airlines has a mantra. It's people, culture, places. That's their mantra. Basically, they're looking at promoting tourism. And 2 weeks ago, they signed an MOU with Uganda Tourism Board, to leverage on Uganda Airlines to, lure more tourists to visit Uganda. And, it's more like, we were in, let me give you an example. We were in Mombasa. There were some tourists who had booked on a certain airline I won't mention, but Uganda Airlines made its maiden flight to Mombasa. And in the lobby, it was a big event at the airport, but then they all had people saying, Uganda Airlines, direct flights from Mombasa to Entebbe. These are guys who had booked on a certain airline, which wasn't direct. So they heard that Uganda Airlines has a direct flight from Mombasa to Entebbe. Trust me, they all cancelled. They all cancelled their bookings on the other airline and paid with Uganda Airlines. And they paid business.
Well, that's
so
good.
What does it mean? It's like people want convenience, and Uganda Airlines has made a name as that airline which will give you direct flights.
Direct flights.
Everywhere they're going, they're flying direct. They're flying direct. And this works for the tourists and the businessmen. Because, people want to cut the in-flight time, the flight hours. It's quite, you've traveled all the way from South America or from North America. You want to get to your destination. You don't want delays.
And it's not probably, I know I don't want us to dwell into the pricing and things like that, but I would want to assume it's quite affordable.
Yeah, it's quite affordable. But with airlines, I was chatting with a colleague who is in the aviation industry in South Sudan. And, he shares a school of thought by, in the aviation industry, cheap doesn't make it.
Doesn't make it,
and trust me, I won't book on an airline because it's cheap. I'll book on an airline because of its services.
Yeah, that is true.
Because of, how, no delays, the in-flight, service, all those things. We look at many things, cheap doesn't cut it.
Doesn't cut it. Because anyway, you need to pay for all those extra services. Okay,
if you're traveling by air, that means, there are some things that you can.
You have to pay a little bit extra. So Samuel, finally, as we wind up, because we cannot exhaust this topic, and I cannot wait to see what you've worked on the 100 days of Uganda Airlines. But real quick, final words as we wind up.
The final words are, for quite some good time, for a very long time indeed, we didn't have a national carrier in Uganda. And the time is now to embrace it on maybe those routes which they ply. It was a welcome move by government to issue that circular that all government officials should fly Uganda Airlines.
Which was a good thing.
You rest assured at least of that revenue from government. At least you're not donating it to other airlines as it was before. So this is Uganda Airlines. It's for Ugandans. They just have to embrace it. It's a national pride. There is that feeling you get. When you're seated in Uganda Airlines and the captain or the passer announces on the microphone that welcome on Uganda Airlines. This is flight this. With their Ugandan accent and all those things. There is that.
The feel is.
I feel just like the way Kenyans used to boss us in the region. We used to donate so much to them. And maybe one thing that I forgot earlier, because we talked about government coming in full throttle to support the airline. I was talking with the former CEO of Uganda Airlines, actually on the maiden flight to Nairobi. Because if you look at what did run down the previous airline, was too much government intervention. We had stories of government officials, calling a plane saying, no. We had that story. A plane had reached Nakasongola. This official told it that no. They should return. They should return to Entebbe because they had left him. We had stories of delays, that we're waiting for a certain official. So Engineer Bagenda told me that the policy they have right now with regards government intervention is that the policy now is all eyes on, but hands off.
That is a very good one. I hope it does work, because oftentimes when someone is giving you the money, it's very difficult.
Yeah, wants to put the hands on and the eyes on. So they're saying all eyes on, but hands off.
That is a very good one. Thank you so much. With me in studios here is a colleague, Samuel Sonono. He's been following up on this. I want to say he is into the aviation. I would want to assume you're going for all these conferences. Pretty much one of these days you could end up deciding to go, fly one or something. But I do appreciate you for your time and, of course, giving us an insight. There's so many things, like he talked about, that will be coming within that particular documentary that you're working on.
True. They should look out for it. And we've not yet, we're still sprucing it up, and promos will run on UBC when it's ready. It's a sight to behold.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And of course, I just know there's a lot of things that I personally can't wait to see, yes? Because you said behind the scenes, and of course we do appreciate you for watching. I know we haven't exhausted everything, but just, giving a little bit of this and that in the aviation
we just,
sector.
We bring in, we're just, highlighting what, as a journalist. Because in the aviation industry, you see that it's the journalists that, get into the corridors, it's them who get the latest scoop, just like I understand the officials of Uganda Airlines met with the president, and they were, just updating him of how business is going on. And the president seems to be hell-bent on them. He saw them the idea, and I think the report is being worked on right now. Uganda Airlines, this year, will place 2 more firm orders of cargo aircraft.
That's amazing.
2 firm orders of cargo aircraft. Sometime in June, it may be made at the Fanbro Air Show, I don't know, but the president wants cargo.
And that's a very good...
We're missing out on that. If you look at the Somalia route, it's mostly cargo. Somalia route, it's mostly cargo. The same applies to Juba, cargo. So, he's looking at it. And with Brexit, I understand African leaders are meeting in the United Kingdom still this year. Basically, they want to talk about that. They want to talk about the markets. So, and what is the bridger? The aviation industry, the national carrier, will help us to amass.
Well, thank you so much, Senator, for that. And of course, our time has run out. How I wish we had more time. But of course, we'll keep bringing you these, and of course, the promos will be running, and you'll be able to see this 100 days. Yes, he just looked at the 100.
I looked at the 100 days, but right now there are 4 months.
They're now 4 months into. But of course, we do hope Uganda Airlines does get to where we want it to go. And of course, so many people. It comes with the support people as well. If we do not support our very own, then there's going to be a huge problem. My time has run out. Rona Kajumba is my name. From me and the entire business team, thank you so much for watching. Have yourselves a good day.